everyone. Welcome to Path and Bound's Creative Office Hour. My name is Stella Guan. I'm the founder and CEO of Path and Bound. We democratize creative education and we provide an equitable path for everyone to learn design. And today we have a really exciting guest. Her name is Anna Istomina, and she is a UX designer. She recently worked for Apple, but now she's on to a new adventure. So, welcome, Anna.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank
I'm
you
so
so much.
excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We actually met in a previous event. We were both panelists, and I was really impressed by your experience and also your fun personality, and that's why I would love, for you to come back and join me. And thank you so much. So, I have my first question for you is: you're an immigrant designer. You moved to the United States, and I was just really wondering what is it like to work in the creative field as an immigrant in this country?
Well, I'm probably the wrong person to ask because I haven't really worked in the creative field anywhere else. My career started here, so I can't really compare. As for my experience, I feel, I worked with a lot of non-immigrant and immigrant people, and I just haven't really felt that it impacted me in any way, except for maybe having to invest a little bit more time to understand the cultural context, right? But that's just, I feel like it's just part of normal learning, like anything else. It's just this little additional little piece.
Yeah, definitely. Myself is an immigrant too, and I kind of had the same feeling. And it's really actually sometimes I have the opportunity to work with designers who are from America, and they're trying to design something for my culture or another culture, and they actually have a lot of questions. And at that time I kind of feel like, oh, I can actually help. That's something really interesting. So yeah, totally. So you transition actually from another industry into design, and you have a pretty good story for that. So I was wondering, what was your transition like, and were there anything else that stood out to you?
Um, yeah, so my transition was very gradual. I worked, I immigrated 3 or 4 times. I'm losing count at this point. And every time I had to kind of build myself from scratch because I was in a totally different place, totally different industries around, and I was kind of developing my inner um, calling, so to speak. So I was working I had a business degree and I was working in a finance kind of area in the government. And then that just didn't feel really aligned. So when I moved to California, I just really decided to kind of go and explore. So I was interested in internet marketing. So I took like a little certificate. Then that led me to, okay, and now I have to practice it. So I went to a small business, and I realized I couldn't practice it because I needed to make their website. So then I started remaking their website, and I got interested in web design. So then I thought, well, I'll just do web design. And then I went into my degree. So, I'm going to fully commit to this. I'm just going to go ahead and just get a degree. I don't even know if I needed it, but I just did it. And as I was there doing I realized my degree was very broad, and I was exposed to different areas of design. And then that's when I kind of started pivoting toward UX, and, experimenting more with visual. And so I would say kind of inching in step by step, trying it out, seeing if it's working, listening to, where I'm being called and just going. And I feel like when I started my design degree, because I already had like 2.5 degrees before this, you
You
know,
have a lot of
thinking
degrees.
about investment. Right, right. And I don't regret it. It's all worth it. It's all part of the plan and the path. But when I started this degree, everything just felt different. All of a sudden I was like, this is fun. This is aligned and kind of easy in a way mentally. It's not easy stuff to learn. It was just easier, and that I totally could feel the difference, and that's how I knew, okay, this is the direction.
Yeah, that's amazing because I had the same feeling when I transitioned into design. So I also got a degree in another field, a little bit adjacent. I got a degree in broadcast journalism, but Didn't really like the environment after I graduated, working in television. And when I transitioned to design, I had a feeling that I didn't hate this, and I think that's a good sign, you know. And 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 when you don't struggle as much and you don't hate it and you actually enjoy it, I think that's a sign that it's, a good path for you. So I kind of see the similarity here. And I
Right.
love the fact that you pointed out that it's a gradual process for you, because nowadays I know a lot of people are really, they want to transition immediately, they want to learn immediately. While this is a very understandable urge, you do actually have to spend time to build your skill set, and it's not something that can happen overnight. So we have to be patient. So I love that piece of information. So my question to you is, what advice do you have for people who are looking to transition into design? What would you, what do you wish that someone had told you before?
Well, one of the things I hear over and over is from actually, especially women that I mentored before in my group. They want to transition to UX design because it feels like more like a technical thing, and they had a business degree or like a coding degree of some sort or experience, and they just say, okay, well, it seems like a logical thing to do, or the industry is growing, and it seems like I could do it. So they come up with all these reasons to go into it because it's like, okay, well, what's the closest thing to what I'm doing? And I feel like if you're already not happy with whatever it is you're doing, you need to kind of stop and think really hard before going into UX. Because UX is a creative field, and if you're not completely kind of, you're not going to know if you're completely in love with it right away. But if you don't have that feeling inside that that's something that you really want to do, or you like designing, you like find yourself making things here and there, you do these designy things on a regular basis. So it's maybe you need to stop and think before going, because creativity is very hard if
Absolutely.
you're not inspired, right?
Yes.
So,
I love that, because actually I heard similar things when I was teaching in college not long ago. I heard from a few students who said to me, they said, well, we're learning this, communication design and graphic design, but I think I should be a UX designer. And I said, why? Because all the jobs are there. And I'm like, I understand that, but you can't just go in there because all the jobs are there. It seems like you don't even know what it is, or you don't even like it, you know? So I think that's probably similar things for the people that you mentor, right?
right. And then I just felt it myself, because when I was at school, I just had all these stories like, okay, I'm not creative enough. I can't come up with ideas. And UX seemed like the least creative thing that I could do to me, in college.
Really?
Like, yeah, like from year 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
I looked at all these students going into visual design or animation. I was like, no, 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 that's not for me. Like, I cannot create things, even though I'm here and like I love it. It's not for me, because like UX seems more logical. There's less visual stuff going on. I'm just gonna corner myself into it. And then that's how I ended up in UX. And I mean, I did UX that is not that is like that, because I chose to do it, and now here I am. I want to pivot into something more creative because
Hmm.
I did not listen back then.
Oh, that's very interesting. Let's talk about that next. No, that's completely, understandable. I think we're on a path that's not linear. We have to figure out our next steps ourselves, and not have, a set path that's set by someone else for us just because it seems like that's the logical thing to do. And I would definitely love to hear that shortly. So, tell us a little bit about your past experience. So, you landed a job as a designer at Apple, and I know that's a dream job for a lot of designers. So, I was curious how that happened for you, and what was the best part working for Apple?
So for me to get that job, I feel, because I can't give the steps, right? Because we all have our own thing, but I feel like just twofold approach. First, I was working. I was so happy I invested some time into working with a career coach, and she was great. She was provided by my school, but um, she literally tailored my resume so well that I went from zero replies to many replies a week.
Wow, that's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, there was that, right? So I started getting attention from recruiters just from rewriting my resume, and I thought it was great. And I did my LinkedIn profile with her, and right away, things started happening. And then it was a bit of luck. The Apple recruiter called, but then I believe when I was interviewing, what really worked in the end is that I already had by that time built over my last year at school and working with the small businesses. I already had that attitude, that you don't really get to develop sometimes as a student. They don't teach you that, but just getting through your blocks and developing this attitude that you can just go and be so confident even without having years of experience. Like I had no corporate experience. I just had my school portfolio, some projects I worked on for small businesses that they were fine. They weren't award winning, but it's just the attitude. For example, I got asked, okay, do you at least know, human interface guidelines, the Apple design framework, and I did not, because I was dreaming about working at Google, and I
Oh
was
no.
real design.
Oh. And what did you say to that?
Well, I said, what's I don't, but give me 3 days. What's so hard?
I
What's so
love
hard about,
that.
like I don't know them today. 3 days later, I will know them.
Oh my God. See, if you
Right.
say that, I would immediately hire you because you don't hear this a lot. You don't hear this confidence a lot.
Well, that's what I think. We need to kind of help the beginning designers develop. When you just go and you're like, okay, I'll learn it. And I did. They said, okay, here's the design challenge, go learn them, bring it back.
That's amazing. And actually that was something that I wasn't expected. But I actually recently wrote an article about this, how a lot of entry level jobs require experience, and students feel really discouraged by that because they're like, how is that possible? Like, who's going to give me an opportunity if no one will? But actually, if you project yourself, in a really confident way, and you can say that, well, how about you give me a design challenge that someone with 5 years of experience can do? I'm going to do it. And you will tell me if this is still a deal breaker, and it's something that not a lot of people have the gut to do that or even think to do that, but you're the embodiment that it actually works. And
It does.
you landed in Apple. That's amazing. And wow. So I really hope our audience, listen to this and start to, build that confidence gradually. It doesn't happen overnight. And I know it's really scary for a lot of people, but if you start telling yourself that because someone did that and they got it, if you want to be like that, you got to be like that too. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
just all, that's all in our heads. So
exactly.
there's like, I wish they taught that at school, just
They don't.
getting through your blocks. And that's actually exactly what I did. My hiring manager said, I'm not exactly confident you're able to handle the volume of work that we have here. I'm not sure you can design, sometimes we handle this many wireframes a day. Can you do that? And I said, well, why don't I get a challenge and I'll show you what I can handle in 3 days.
Wow.
And he did. That's when he gave me, I think he was ready to kind of not hire me. He was like,
Oh.
well, I asked the recruiter to, somebody with 5 years experience and this. He started getting a little frustrated.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, well, he's frustrated. I don't need to get discouraged.
Yeah.
He's just not sure. and I need to convince them,
Oh my God, that is actually really, really inspiring because you're you're showing confidence to people who actually don't believe in you, right? In the beginning, they literally said they don't believe in you, and that's something really hard to hear. And you're like, okay, I don't care you don't believe in me. I'm gonna show you. This is great. This is badass. I love that. Wow, I love that. So is there anything that frustrates you as a designer?
Well, not an easily frustrated person, but I think when I think about all the tools that you have to learn and the disorganization, like I'll give you an example. I was interviewing for my last year of school. I was interviewing with Airbnb, and I didn't get the job. Well, because I was still, at school. I wasn't as some skills were missing, but mostly I also did not know Sketch, which I really needed. It was a 6 month contract. They need somebody to come in, work in Sketch, and leave. And I next year I invested into learning Sketch. It's like, okay, this is a lesson. I'm gonna really invest, and I invested. And next year I go. Before graduating, I meet with the same guy because they used to come to our school sometimes
Yeah.
for conferences. I meet with the same guy. I'm like, I know Sketch now. He's like, well, actually, we're transitioning to Figma now. And
Oh.
like, well, now I have to pay for Figma and I have to pay for this and I
Oh
have to pay for
no.
that. I'm not even working. And how do I, you know,
Yeah.
how do I invest in learning all of this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, designers, we are kind of expected to know at least 10 to 15 programs at a time. And it's and it's the norm, and it's not even counting the ridiculous job posts that require you to also know how to code, like, Python. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not one job, that's two jobs. And
That's two
you're
jobs.
only paying one salary. Who's gonna work for you, you know? So no, I completely relate to you. And honestly, that's one thing a lot of students are frustrated about too. They're like, so which one should I learn? And honestly, I think because we're designers, we have to be curious and we have to be open minded. So unfortunately, we have to keep learning, because things are going to come up and they're going to change. It's
Right.
never like I'm, I learned Photoshop and that's one and done. That's my entire life. That's not going to happen. If you do that, you're not going to have a job in a couple of years, right? So yeah, absolutely. So do you think if there is an issue in the design industry that needs to be talked about more, but it's currently not really being spoken about enough?
Well, again, it's kind of like a more complex issue that I find that I struggle to really define myself. It kind of has to do with what I already mentioned, the building that attitude, getting rid of your blocks, and really kind of having a process that you're confident in, because it doesn't matter what you know, um, technically, if you can't just spit it out, and also, on the moment's notice, and also maybe helping designers really understand what the role of a designer is. And they do teach you a little bit about how, okay, be open to criticism and stay open, but it doesn't really help. Really, there needs to be more, maybe more examples. For example, I just had this. My last year at school was really interesting because that's when I started kind of just changing from just sitting in the corner. I was suffering with imposter syndrome for the first 3 years. I was like, I'm old. I was nearing my 30s, and there were kids that were much younger. And like, I'm old, and I don't. Some of these kids started drawing when they were little, and I'll never catch up. Everything, right? So I went through it all, and then in my last year, I was in the class. It was an interesting class, and my one of my classmates, I used to get frustrated by the way she handled things, and I was on the team with her. And for example, we would get this assignment, and I would agonize about my assignment. I would do a lot of research, da 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 da. Then I made this perfect little page. Now bring it, and then the instructor would look at it for 2 minutes and be like, well, this is not really the direction. Like, you haven't really done anything. I'm like, oh my God, I've invested like 3 days into this. And this girl, she would go on the internet, she would look at all these pictures and do her research, she'd print out all the pictures. She would make all these notes. I'm like, she's just making notes of everything. And like, she's just posting these pictures and she's not really creating anything, she's not making a deliverable. And then she would bring it and post it all over the wall. And the instructor would go in and get really involved. They're like, look at you, you're such a hard worker. And I'm like, it's just frustrating. And then I realized, and
Yeah.
then I realized like she's got it. Like she maybe not all the way, but I I realized like she's frustrating me because that's what I want to be like. She's involving people early on. She's putting things out there. She's not being stuck in perfectionism. Like she's just able to produce a first shitty draft in a moment's notice. And she's living up to, what I realized at Apple is, in my opinion, the designer's role is to give people something to have an opinion about and at early stages. People can't picture it, and that's your goal. You just picture it, you put it out there, and then you can all, develop it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this one is, you know, over and over again, it happens everywhere, right? If you work for a client, if you don't show them early on and then you spend, 5, 10 days doing it, and then they're like, I don't like it. And then you're like, whoa, I just wasted my entire week on something that you do not like. And this is actually a really business oriented approach because even if you're like launching your own product or anything relating to pushing the product into the market, you can't just sit there and make it until it's perfect. That's actually the approach of making art. It's not making design, right? So when you
Right.
make art, it doesn't matter. It's your self expression and you have to make it the way that you want it to be. And then you put it into the world. If they like it, they'll buy it. If not, they'll, not
Right.
come. But design is like totally different. And I really appreciate you bringing that up. And it's interesting how it happened in your school environment too, right? Like, so the professor actually, maybe detected that this other student had the better approach, but yeah, no, it seems like well, at Apple you kind of experienced that firsthand and how it actually helped. That's amazing. So I know that you also organize a UX designer community for Russian speaking designers. Tell us a little bit about that. What inspired you to be involved in community building, and how's the community going?
So yeah, that group was interesting. It just got organized organically because I would just go, there's a bunch of Russian speaking groups that are just dealing with general stuff. And sometimes people would ask something about UX and I would reply to them here and there. And then one time I replied about something, I forgot what topic it was, but then something about starting, all this stuff. And I replied and I got more questions. And then it got a little overwhelming. We hopped on a call with maybe five girls. And then there was so much to discuss. I said, well, why don't I just put us all in the Facebook group for temporarily, and we can just stay connected and I can post some things. And then I did it. And then over the next week, somehow I got like 70 people join. And I was thinking, I'm not planning on opening a group, but okay, so there's definitely, some demand. And then, yeah, and then it's been going really well. It's really helpful to have a community where you can ask questions or if you're struggling with, a design challenge. I posted a lot of things about design challenges because a lot of times those are the things that people are interested in. We talked about process, all these things, but actually recently I have gifted that group to another designer friend of mine
Oh.
because she has also been mentoring. She's been helping out, and I gave it to her because I felt like I wanted to, if I'm going to mentor, I wanted to move beyond Russian speaking and
Mhm.
open it up. Sometimes I got a little sad, and I'm like, oh, I have Russian speaking and women, and I'm going to exclude everyone else. And there's definitely a need, and it's really nice to talk to somebody from your culture, and
Yeah.
but I want to start expanding it a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. That's
Yeah.
very interesting to hear. So the your friend, the new person is going to take over to run the group and continue to keep that while you move on to something else. That's really cool that you can even I didn't even know you can gift that. That's that's awesome. Yeah, so I know you know we when we first virtually met, right, on at the panel, I just, you know, I you're the only person that I didn't really forget. You know, I really love your personality. It's so fun. So how do you what do you think how do you think like personality built into your own personal brand when you interview with companies and when you find clients? How important do you think it is?
Well, in my opinion, you can't write on personality alone, of course. There has to be knowledge and work,
Of course.
but I feel like from my experience, it's probably about 50% of the deal. It has been very important, and I think we need to realize early on just to start building our online presence in a way that's going to. I'll explain how that helps, at least in my experience. So in my last school year, because before I was just making these projects that I was tailoring, oh, I know material guidelines, or I want this to look like, everybody was like that. Like, I want to work at Tesla, so I'm going to do this. Or I want to work at Apple, so I'm going to make Apple-esque projects, which is very helpful. And I already had that, a couple of those. But in my last year, I thought, I just feel like putting myself out there, because I mean, this is all great, but it looks generic. And how are people going to know if I don't present myself that is, in the way that's me? So my final senior project, I just did this fun project about a board game projector.
Oh,
Still in
really?
my portfolio, but
That's amazing.
like, why not? Like, I wasn't going to go into game industry, but I just really liked it. I liked the theme. So it was something that I just played with. I made it, and it actually did attract a lot of attention, not because of the industry, but because, it was me. Um, and then my logo, I have that little orange bunny, kind of pops out of from
Yeah.
behind the screen on
Uh-huh.
my
I
home.
can, yep, I can see that. Yep.
Right. So I designed that. I didn't just make it like a random bunny. I designed it based on three words, sense of humor, warm, friendly, or something like that. Right. I thought about myself and my style. I designed it, and I put it in my portfolio, and I thought, well, it's not going to attract everybody. It's not very like a corporate thing. It's more like if I want to work for a smaller agency, perhaps, right? Which I kind of wanted to back then. And it's not going to attract everybody, but it will attract people that I connect with more, most likely. And that's what's going to make the interview easier, right? That's when the personality is going to help, because we can't expect everybody to be bubbly or friendly.
Yeah.
Some people are more serious. Some people don't like to talk a lot, and
Yeah.
some people just like to put their head down and do great work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you can show that, and you will attract people that are like that as well. So you don't have to kind of get out of you, just be all worked up about having this sort of personality for somebody.
Yeah. No, that's really helpful advice because, you know, I think in one of my articles I wrote something like, you're not for everybody, but you'll be special to somebody, right? It kind of sounds like it's a relationship advice, but it's the same way for recruiting for like the job market. It's kind of like if you have to try to hide away your personality to work for a company, maybe that's not the healthiest environment, you know,
No.
and you do want to attract the people, the environment that appreciates who you are. And that's where personal branding stands in because it's literally like you are going to stand out from all those other people who didn't pay attention to that. No offense to them, but you know, it really it's that currency that you own that you can, show off to people. So I love that. So I know that now you're on to another adventure. I don't know if you're comfortable telling us what you have planned in the future, and would really love to follow your path. So what's going on next?
Well, I'm doing something kind of crazy in my mind, but also I just, as always, I'm just following what's inside. Uh, so far, it's been going well for me. And I just felt at some, with quarantine, I worked through most of my quarantine life. And I felt that my job was kind of starting to get old a little bit. I've started to outgrow it. And it felt like, okay, maybe it's time for a next step. And I thought about what the next step would be. Do I invest into maybe getting a different position or this or that? And I felt like I just really wanted to really commit to my dream, of I still want to do UX. So I have some apps planned that I wanted to make. They're not anything huge. Like I don't have an idea, that I'm just gonna take it and that's gonna be my business. I'm just doing the next step of it. I need to make some apps. I really feel like these apps are in here and like I really need to make them. I don't know why.
You're like an
And then
artist. You're like an artist who needs to get something out, otherwise it's going to explode inside of them, you know?
right. And I'm like, I'm just gonna stop everything and commit, like just like a relationship again, I'm just gonna commit to this idea and I have a certain idea of how many hours I want to work and when I want to work and from which part of the country I want to work. And I have a family and I want to dedicate this much time to them. So I really want to just do that. And so I put all eggs in this basket and I'm taking off. And then I also want to, dedicate because I've always been interested in animation. And I feel like the more I stay doing what I'm doing, which is um, kind of working like on a dashboard UX, um, it's fun and it's challenging. It just doesn't allow me, there's no time left to practice anything else. Um, so I'm going to dedicate maybe like 20% of the time to animation. And I do have a lot of ideas, some cartoons I want to make,
Oh
like
my God, really? That's
cartoons. I'm like,
amazing.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
if I just rely on logic alone, I'm like, well, no, I'm not as creative. I don't even know how to draw really well, and da da da, and
Me
yada
neither.
yada.
Me neither.
Right? And I'm
Yeah.
like, but it's right here, and I'm gonna try it, and
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I love the fact that you're now taking time off for your passion projects and maybe turn this into something more serious. And it's something that not a lot of us, allow ourselves to have. And, unfortunately, a lot of people don't have the resources to have that.
Right.
And actually, I'm going through the same thing right now where last year I quit my corporate job and started to have, my own business. But actually, it wasn't until earlier this year, that I have to actually have the time to sit down and say that I'm going to reset. I'm going to actually dedicate this amount of time to do this. Last year was because I was moving over across the country. I actually spent most of my time freelancing, and that's been great. But it's not my dream to be a freelancer. It's my dream to be an entrepreneur. And it really, it's scary to kind of like, okay, I'm gonna, basically turn away most of the work that comes in, and I'm going to focus on this thing and see how it goes. We really need to see it through. Otherwise, I could be a freelancer forever, but that's not my dream. So I think we're on a parallel path
Yeah.
here.
It's like I feel you because this is how it's been for me when I left Apple. I had people that I worked with before, and some recruiters call me, and I was getting these kind of easy looking opportunities. Like I wouldn't even have to interview very hard. Like, oh, you come work for us, and one of the opportunities was in virtual reality, and it's like, wow,
Ooh,
that was
that is cool.
fantastic, but it's in Europe. But it's like, wow, and then I said, I don't have time. And they said, well, come work 2 days a week, or 3 days a week. And I really wanted to. And then like I had my older clients from freelancing show up as well. like, well, this is all money, like easy money. And then I thought, well, no, it's just the moment you start to focus on something that you really want, that everything under the sun comes in,
Yep.
everything just
Yep.
comes at you to distract you from that. And that's how
Yep.
you know this is where you should be going.
Absolutely. I literally had to pull a hard stop at Christmas last year to prevent myself from, diving deeper into that swirl of, opportunity, which is actually a blessing. A lot of people,
Yes.
they don't have that. They're like, wait, how do you even have those? I mean, once you build yourself in the industry, actually, if you network, if you are established and well known, then those opportunities are going to come. But that doesn't mean you have to take all of them, right? You have to focus on what's important to you, which is what we're trying to do and figuring it out for the next step. So I really admire your very exciting path from another industry to to UX, to Apple, and then now on to something totally unknown, but it's for yourself. I really love that, and I can't wait to hear the next steps if you would update us. But thank you so much, Anna, for joining us as a guest today. I'm sure our audience learned a lot from you, and if you want to hear more of this, stay tuned. My name is Stella Guan. I am the founder and CEO of Path and Bound, and we will see you next time.